I never expected that a simple phone call could flip my life upside down, but that's precisely what it did. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in Chicago when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but something inside urged me to answer. When I did, the voice on the other end hit me like a wave, unmistakable despite the years. "Samantha, it's Isabella," she said, her tone carrying an unsettling mix of formality and something darker beneath. "Isabella?" I responded, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" My estranged sister was calling with the news that our grandmother had passed away. The loss itself was jarring, but the way she spoke suggested there was more to the story. "I just thought you should know," she continued, her voice tinged with an almost mocking edge. "I'm sure you're too busy with your simple life to be bothered." Her words stung more than I cared to admit, but I did my best not to let it show. "Thanks for letting me know. I'll make arrangements to come." It wasn't just her words, it was the rush of painful memories they brought with them. Growing up, Isabella had always been the favorite. She had our father's attention and a charm that seemed to open doors for her, while I was left in the shadows. No matter how hard I tried, my efforts seemed invisible. We hadn't spoken much in years. After she had stolen David from me, I severed ties with her, and, in doing so, with the rest of my family. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was the glaring reminder of how I had always been treated differently. David Parker had been my fiancé, the love of my life. We had built a future together, until Isabella, with her manipulative ways, came along. He left me for her, and the devastation was unbearable. It wasn't just a broken engagement, it was a wound that would never quite heal. Our family was fractured, to say the least. Our father, always distant and rigid, had always favored Isabella, particularly for her resemblance to him. My mother, though loving, was caught between us, trying to maintain some semblance of peace, but it was clear who held the most sway. After the fallout, I left my job as a school administrator to raise my daughter. Lily. John, my supportive husband, worked as a tech executive, and together we had built a comfortable, modest life in the suburbs, filled with love and contentment. Lily, our 6-year-old daughter, brought so much joy to our lives. She was a budding artist with her own YouTube channel, sharing her artwork with an ever-growing audience. But the call from Isabella shattered the calm. The thought of returning to the family home for the funeral stirred up a storm of unease. I hadn't been back in years, and the memories were more complicated than I wanted to confront. Our grandmother had always been a steady presence in my life, the one person who had truly supported me. Her passing marked the end of an era, and Isabella's call felt like an invitation back into a world I'd tried to escape. I spent the next few days bracing myself for the trip. The thought of seeing Isabella again stirred a mix of dread and curiosity. This wasn't just about the funeral, it was about facing all the unresolved emotions, the fractures in our family, and the resentment I'd carried for years. There was something in her voice, something I couldn't quite place, that made me suspect there was more to her call than just a death notice. When the day of the funeral arrived, I found myself standing outside the family home. The house, unchanged and yet oddly different, was a time capsule of my childhood, a place full of memories, both happy and painful. Inside, the air was thick with sorrow, but there was something more, something hidden beneath the surface. Familiar faces greeted me, some filled with grief, others with motives I could only guess at. And there she was, Isabella, standing at the center of it all. Her gaze swept over the room with practiced indifference, as if she were the queen of some court. Her charm was still as potent as ever, and the crowd hung on her every word. I couldn't help but watch her, the same tension between us still hanging in the air. Despite the years, it felt like we were trapped in a cycle that had never really ended. Isabella's very presence was a reminder of everything that had always been wrong in our family. In the middle of the ceremony, as the eulogies were being delivered, Isabella found me. Her smile was too polished, her eyes too cold. "Samantha," she said, her voice syrupy sweet, "it's been a long time." I forced a smile. "Yes, it has. How have you been?" "Oh, you know," she replied, her tone laced with artificial sweetness. "Life's been interesting." The weight of her words wasn't lost on me. The old rivalry was still there, lurking beneath the surface. As I looked at her, I realized that this reunion wasn't just about mourning our grandmother. It was about confronting the past, the betrayals, the secrets, and the choices that had shaped us both. Little did I know, this encounter would set off a chain of events that would uncover truths about Isabella, our family, and myself that I was not prepared for. The days leading up to the funeral were filled with tension, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I tried to focus on my family, John, Lily, and our everyday routines, but the looming reunion with Isabella and the family I had worked so hard to distance myself from made it impossible to escape the weight of the past. The familiar echoes of old grievances and unhealed wounds were always there, just beneath the surface. The day of the funeral arrived, and the air seemed to hang heavy with grief and unresolved emotions. The family home, now filled with relatives and acquaintances, stood as a silent witness to years of history, both good and bad. The walls, worn and familiar, seemed to hold the ghosts of past arguments, laughter, and long-buried secrets. As I entered the living room, I felt Isabella's gaze on me. Her presence was as imposing as ever, a perfect blend of polished grace and unspoken rivalry. It wasn't long before she approached, her smile genuine but still carrying that same edge of superiority. "I've been meaning to catch up," she said, her voice soft but carrying a note of curiosity. "It's been a while since we've had the chance to talk." I forced a smile, doing my best to maintain my composure. "Yes, it has. How have things been for you?" "Oh, you know," she responded with a casual wave. "Busy but good. I'm sure you've heard how things have been for me." I nodded, although I wasn't entirely sure what she meant. The last I had heard, Isabella was living a life of luxury in Los Angeles. The stories I'd heard painted a picture of perfection and success, but I knew better than to believe everything I heard. During the wake, Isabella made sure everyone knew just how successful her life was. She spoke about her life in Los Angeles, her upscale lifestyle, and her achievements as if trying to convince everyone that she had everything I didn't. It was as though she were competing, trying to prove that her life was somehow superior to mine. I watched her with a mix of curiosity and irritation. Beneath her confident facade, I knew there was a tangled mess of lies and manipulation. What stung most, though, was her casual mention of David Parker, my former fiancé, now her ex-husband. Her attempts to show how unaffected she was by their failed marriage felt like salt being rubbed into an old wound. David had been my world. We'd planned a future together until Isabella, with her manipulative charm, stole him away. The betrayal had shattered me, and seeing Isabella so casually flaunt her life with him in the past was like reopening a scar I had worked so hard to heal. I decided I needed to confront her. I wasn't sure if I would get any answers or closure, but I had to try. As the crowd began to thin out, I pulled her aside into a quieter corner of the house. "Isabella, can we talk?" I asked, keeping my voice as calm as I could. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Of course, what's on your mind?" "I need to understand," I said, my voice faltering slightly. "Why did you have to take David from me? What made you think it was okay to just take him away?" Isabella's face shifted from its usual veneer of cheerfulness to something colder, more calculating. "Samantha, it wasn't about taking anything," she said, her tone almost dismissive. "David and I had our own connection. You just didn't see it. You manipulated him," I countered, my voice rising in frustration. "You knew how much I loved him." She shrugged, unconcerned. "David made his own choices. Life moves on. Samantha, you'll have to move on too." Her words were like a slap. She had always dismissed my feelings, and her lack of empathy still stung. "You never understood, did you?" I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "It wasn't just about David, it was about how you always seemed to have everything handed to you, while I had to fight for everything I had." Isabella's face hardened, and she spoke in a cool, cutting tone. "Don't blame me for your shortcomings. We all have our battles. Maybe if you had been more assertive, things would have been different." Her words were like daggers, striking old wounds that had never fully healed. I wanted to lash out, to say more, but instead I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. "This isn't just about David," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It's about our family, the way I was always treated as second best." Before she could respond, distant relatives arrived, forcing me to step away. The confrontation was left unresolved, a heavy knot in my chest. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of faces and condolences, but my mind couldn't stop replaying the conversation with Isabella. The unresolved issues between us, the family dynamics, were all I could think about. As the funeral came to a close the next day, I felt both relief and unease. The tension in the air was palpable, and I knew that there were still truths left uncovered. Isabella's perfect life was beginning to crack, and I was determined to uncover what lay beneath. I left the funeral with a sense of renewed purpose. The confrontation had only scratched the surface, and I was ready to dig deeper. There were secrets, lies, waiting to be uncovered, and I was prepared to face them head-on. The days following the funeral were strangely calm, but an unsettling quiet hung over everything. I replayed my confrontation with Isabella over and over in my mind, searching for answers in the chaos. John and Lily were my anchors during this storm. They could sense my distress but chose comfort over inquiry, offering a steady presence without pushing for details. Lily, with her bright smile and passion for drawing, continued to pour herself into her YouTube channel, sharing her art with the world. In the midst of everything, her innocence and joy were the one bright light that kept me going. It wasn't long before the next chapter of this saga unfolded. Isabella, ever the drama queen, took to social media to mock me with thinly veiled posts. Her updates, dripping with sarcasm, painted her life as the epitome of success while implying that mine was dull and insignificant. It was infuriating to see her attempt to diminish my happiness so publicly. That's when Lily's YouTube channel became an unexpected weapon. One evening, after yet another cruel post from Isabella, Lily and I decided it was time to turn her platform into something more than just a showcase for her drawings. Together, we created a video that countered Isabella's lies, one that highlighted the positive aspects of our life while subtly addressing the falsehoods she was spreading. The video, simple and innocent on the surface, contained enough pointed references to make it clear we were aware of Isabella's attempts to undermine us. It quickly gained traction, and soon, the comment sections of both Lily's channel and Isabella's posts were flooded with reactions. People began to see Isabella's facade for what it truly was, a carefully constructed mask hiding deep insecurities and lies. As the video went viral, Isabella's reputation began to unravel. The social media backlash was swift and unforgiving. Comments began to point out inconsistencies in her stories and question her integrity. The carefully curated image she'd worked so hard to build now exposed her vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, Isabella's personal life took a turn for the worse. David, struggling under the weight of the fallout from their failed marriage and the public scrutiny, made a costly mistake at work that led to his dismissal from his position as a software engineer. The professional and emotional strain took its toll, and David spiraled into a deep sense of self-doubt. Unable to cope with the financial and emotional pressure, Isabella made the drastic decision to file for divorce. She severed her final ties with David, and their son, James, became an unfortunate casualty of the chaos. With Isabella's unstable situation, James was placed in a care facility, a stark contrast to the privileged life she had once flaunted. Family dynamics shifted rapidly. My mother, always more sympathetic to Isabella, approached me with a heartfelt apology for the past. "I'm sorry for everything, Samantha," she said, her eyes filled with regret. "We should have done better by you. I see now how much pain we've caused." I appreciated her words, but the scars of the past weren't so easily healed. I chose to keep my distance, maintaining a cordial relationship with her while focusing on what truly mattered, my own family's happiness and well-being. In the midst of all this turmoil, John and I decided to take a break from the chaos. We planned a day at an amusement park, a chance for Lily to enjoy herself and for us to reconnect as a family. The trip was everything we needed, a day of laughter, joy, and bonding that reinforced the strength of our family and the peaceful life we had worked hard to build together. As we enjoyed the day, I realized that while the past had its shadows, the future held the promise of light. With Isabella's downfall and the family's apologies, I felt a sense of closure. The journey was far from over, but for now, I could focus on cherishing the present and looking ahead to a brighter future. The weeks after the trip brought a deep sense of calm. My life, once shaken by familial discord, was finding its balance once again. As I looked around at my little family, I saw how much we had grown and healed through all the trials. Isabella's downfall, though difficult to witness, served as a powerful reminder of the destructive forces of envy and manipulation. Her failed attempts to belittle my life had only led to her own undoing. The divorce, the loss of her son to a care facility, and her crumbling reputation were harsh consequences of the path she had chosen. David, once a part of my life and now a figure of past regrets, was facing his own struggles. His job loss left him struggling to regain his footing. Yet, despite everything, I felt a growing sense of detachment. My focus had fully shifted to my own family and the life we had worked so hard to create. John and I continued to nurture our relationship, finding strength in each other. Our daughter, Lily, thrived in her creative endeavors. Her YouTube channel remained a beacon of joy and positivity, offering an escape from the negativity that had surrounded us. Watching her grow and flourish was a constant reminder of what truly mattered. One day, I received a letter from my mother. In it, she expressed her sorrow for the way things had unfolded and asked for my forgiveness. Her apology was heartfelt, but I knew that mending our relationship would take time. I responded with kindness, acknowledging her regret while emphasizing the importance of moving forward. Our family dynamics had been permanently altered, but the experience also brought clarity. My parents' favoritism toward Isabella and the subsequent fallout had taught me invaluable lessons about resilience and forgiveness. It was clear that healing these wounds would require more than just time, it would require understanding and a willingness to let go of past grievances. In quiet moments of reflection, I understood that the pain of the past had forged a stronger bond within my own family. John, Lily, and I were more connected than ever, and our shared experiences had deepened our appreciation for one another. We found solace in our daily routines and the small moments of joy that made life worth living. As summer turned to fall, I began planning a new project, one that would honor the lessons learned and the family we had become. I started a community initiative focused on helping families navigate conflicts and build stronger relationships. It was a way to turn my experiences into something positive, offering support to others who might be facing similar challenges. Looking back, I could see how far we had come from those turbulent days, the confrontation at our grandmother's funeral, the revelations that followed, and the social media battles had all contributed to a profound transformation. Isabella's story, though a cautionary tale, was also a testament to my own strength and determination to move forward with love. As I closed this chapter of my life, I felt a deep sense of closure. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been enlightening. The road ahead was filled with promise, and I was ready to embrace it with an open heart. In the end, it was the love of my family and the lessons I had learned that guided me through. With John by my side, Lily's laughter brightening our days, and the community project taking shape, I knew the future was ours to shape. Whatever challenges lay ahead, our family's strength and unity would carry us through.